Welcome to Whiskey Gaming, and this is my light review of Jusant, or Jusant if you're an American like me. I played it on the Xbox Series X, it's also available on the PS5, and you can play it on the PC. So let's get into the story. You play as a lone wanderer who is basically climbing this huge stone tower in the middle of a desert. All the water in the world appears to have dried up, and well, your goal is to get this little blue creature to the top of the tower. And really, that is the extent of the story as you are playing it. But what I found so interesting about this game was all the letters that you find along the way, or the seashells that you find and listen to. And the reason I found those so interesting were because the letters and the notebooks and all of that stuff, they give you basically a slice of life and what the people were experiencing while the world was drying up, after the world was drying up, the civilization that was living in this stone tower, essentially. And it's just really cool as somebody who loves history because it feels like you're there getting these accounts of the history of what this place was. And at first I was like, but then the more I read, the more I experienced, the more I really fell in love with what they were building, the story they were telling. I should also say that I'm not entirely surprised by that because it was made by Don't Nod, and I think they are some fantastic storytellers over there. And let's get into the audio. And as for the voiceover work, there really isn't a lot of it. It's mostly just efforts made by your character because, they're exerting themselves. And it's, little squeaks and whatnot from your adorable little companion. As for the music though, I think the music's perfect for this game. It really is just wonderful. I think the soundtrack is great. It's not necessarily something I'm gonna own, but it is perfect. It fits the game so very well, and it really helps build the experience. Then you have all the sound effects, which are great. The most important ones are really the ambient noises of the small creatures that live in the tower, because otherwise it's pretty much empty. But not just that, the atmosphere around you, because you kind of go through different biomes and each of them have their own sound when you're climbing, when you're traveling through the caves. I think all the sound effects just do a good job helping build the world. But let's get on to the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is kind of an interesting game in that it's really just climbing. I've seen a lot of the descriptors as like a puzzle climber, and that's a fair description, I guess. I didn't find any of it too puzzling, but I think that's also what works for this game because, quite frankly, it just felt like a very relaxing experience throughout. There was never any true peril. When you're climbing and your arms are getting tired, yes, it feels a little perilous, but death didn't really seem to be a real thing in this game, which I was okay with because, like I said, it just made the entire experience relaxing. And I mean, that is your goal of the game. It's really to climb up the tower, and they do add different elements to the climbing. You have a rope type thing that you anchor yourself with, you can use to swing, you can jump to other rock things, there's creatures that you can grab onto and they'll pull you up a certain distance, there's creatures that'll help you jump, etc. As I mentioned earlier, there are like different biomes to the tower and they will affect the climbing. There were only a few times where I felt like the geometry got in the way of the climbing. There were a couple of times where it kind of blocked me, but it was never like really frustrating. It was slightly annoying, but it never took away from anything. And the best way I can describe it is just a relaxing experience. There's not an insane amount of depth to the mechanics. They are simple to learn, they are simple to master, and they do exactly what they need to do, which is get you through the story, the history. As for the controls, I think the controls work very well once you get the hang of them. There is a certain level of complexity to them to match the gameplay mechanics to make it a more involved experience, but I was happy with it. And then let's get into the graphics and visuals, and this is not by any stretch of the imagination a hyper-realistic looking game. It's clearly not something that they were going for with this game. What this game is bright, colorful, and cartoony, which is really kind of an interesting art style to go with because climbing up this, there's no one there. It's very desolate, it's very lonely, and it's kind of sad experiencing that. But that also very much works and just lends such deep personality to this game. And the biggest part, like, yes, you have your character, they have their facial expressions, you have your little companion, which is adorable, and he makes his adorable little cartoon expressions, etc. But like, another character is the world. The tower that you are climbing is its own character. Each of the different biomes do feel truly unique. And I know I don't have a ton of footage of all the different biomes, but I don't want to spoil that because I think experiencing those different biomes is what makes them so special. But seeing the weather effects on the different biomes is truly awesome, and they do a great job with it. To put it simply, everything has this cartoony element, but it's well animated, it fits within the world, and it breathes life into the world and turns the world into its own character. And I think they did a fantastic job with that, and it adds to the storytelling. So to put it simply, while it's cartoony, it's not hyper realistic, it is still a beautiful game with its own art style, and it just works. If I do have to lay out one complaint I did have with this game, it's when you're exploring areas trying to find the letters and whatnot, you can get caught on parts of the world in an obnoxious way. And when you get caught, it kind of freezes up your character. I was able to jump and get out of them, but it is weird and annoying. I wish that was something that they would have fixed, and it happened frequently enough that I can't imagine it didn't happen during testing. But it wasn't game destroying, it was just an annoyance, and you could easily get past it. So to wrap this up, I really enjoyed this experience. I wasn't entirely sure what I was getting myself into. And at first it didn't have the story that I was expecting, but as it went on, as I found more letters, etc., it really grew on me. And then just like I said, the relaxing atmosphere of playing this game, I gotta say, I just really enjoyed it. So I personally would recommend this, but I can fully understand if it's not somebody's cup of tea. It's just this kind of weird, different experience. It's not designed around action. It's not designed around points. It's not designed around leveling up. It's just this kind of zen experience where the history of this tower unfolds for you. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me what's a game that you find just incredibly relaxing? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.